What if everything you've been told about success is backwards? Most people spend their entire lives chasing money, promotions, and status, yet millions still wake up feeling empty. If you've ever wondered why success doesn't always bring happiness, this book might completely change the way you think. The Japanese have a concept called Ikigai, a simple idea that's helped people live longer, happier, and more meaningful lives. But here's the surprising part. It has almost nothing to do with becoming rich. In the next few minutes, you'll discover the one question that could help you find your purpose, why most people never do, and the daily habit practiced in one Japanese village that's famous for producing some of the world's longest living people. Stay until the end, because the final lesson from this book could completely change how you make every major decision in your life. His alarm rang every morning at 6:30, not because he wanted to wake up, but because life demanded it. His name doesn't matter, because he could be you. He graduated believing life would reward hard work. He imagined success, freedom, a meaningful career, maybe a beautiful family one day. Instead, his mornings became identical. Wake up, coffee, traffic, emails, deadlines, dinner, Netflix, sleep, repeat. Weeks became months. Months became years. And one afternoon, while staring at another spreadsheet, he asked himself a question that terrified him. If my life keeps going exactly like this, where will I be in 10 years? Silence. No answer came. Only fear. Not fear of failure. Fear that nothing would ever change. Because here's something nobody tells you. The opposite of happiness isn't sadness. It's numbness. When nothing excites you anymore. When every Monday feels identical. When Friday only exists because you desperately want to escape Monday again. You stop living and start surviving. That night, he sat in his apartment, phone in one hand, remote control in the other, scrolling, watching, scrolling again, looking for something, anything, that could distract him from the emptiness inside. But distractions have expiration dates. Eventually, the silence returns. And in silence, truth becomes impossible to ignore. Is this really my life? Most people think prison has walls. It doesn't. Sometimes, prison looks like a comfortable paycheck, a beautiful apartment, a respectable job title. People congratulate you, while your soul quietly disappears. The tragedy isn't that people fail. The tragedy is succeeding at a life they never truly wanted. And here's the dangerous part. Comfort is addictive, not because it makes you happy, because it keeps you distracted. Day after day, we trade our dreams for predictability. We convince ourselves we'll start tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll exercise. Tomorrow we'll write that book. Tomorrow we'll quit the job. Tomorrow we'll become who we were meant to be. But tomorrow has destroyed more dreams than yesterday ever could. Our protagonist believed exactly that, until one phone call changed everything. It was his grandfather, 93 years old, living alone, still gardening every single morning, still smiling, still laughing louder than people half his age. He asked a simple question: "When are you coming to visit?" A week later, he arrived. The old man greeted him at the door with dirt on his hands. Not because he had to work, because he wanted to. After lunch, they walked through the garden. The grandfather stopped beside a tiny flower growing through a crack in the stone. He smiled and asked, "Do you know why this flower survived?" The young man shrugged. It had nowhere else to grow. The old man shook his head. "No, it survived because growing is what flowers do." Then he looked directly into his grandson's eyes. And humans are no different. We don't become unhappy because life is difficult. We become unhappy when we stop growing. Those words stayed with him for days, for weeks, because deep inside, he knew he hadn't been growing. He had been existing. There is a difference, a massive one. A few weeks later, while researching Japanese culture, he discovered one word, just one: Ikigai. There is no perfect English translation. Some call it your reason for being. Others say, the reason you wake up every morning. But neither explanation captures its true depth. In Japan, especially among the remarkably long-lived residents of Okinawa, Ikigai isn't considered a luxury. It isn't something you search for after becoming rich. It's something you live every single day. The elderly there don't retire because they reach a certain age. They continue contributing, creating, gardening, teaching, helping, and learning for as long as they can. Their sense of purpose is woven into daily life, alongside strong community bonds and simple habits. Their goal isn't simply to live longer. Their goal is to have a reason worth living longer for. And suddenly, everything started making sense. Maybe burnout wasn't caused by working too much. Maybe it came from working without meaning. Maybe discipline wasn't the real problem. Maybe motivation wasn't either. Maybe the real problem was the purpose, because purpose changes everything. Without purpose, an alarm clock feels like punishment. With purpose, it becomes an invitation. Psychiatrist Viktor Frankl survived one of history's darkest chapters because he believed that people can endure almost any hardship when they have a reason to live. His work emphasized that meaning gives suffering direction instead of letting it become despair. That realization echoed through the young man's mind. He stopped asking, "What do I want from life?" and started asking, "What does life need from me?" Those are two completely different questions. One is about talking, the other is about becoming. And that single shift was the beginning of everything, because he was finally standing at the edge of a journey most people never dare to take. Not a journey across countries, a journey inward, toward the person he was always capable of becoming. But discovering your purpose is far more uncomfortable than remaining comfortably lost. And what happened next forced him to confront every excuse, every fear, and every identity he had been hiding behind. Because finding your Ikigai doesn't begin with answers. It begins with breaking the person you've been pretending to be.
There comes a time in every person's life when the agony of staying the same is more intolerable than the terror of changing. For him, that moment arrived. Not because things had gotten better, but because he could no longer fool himself. He understood that he had pursued success blindly, never once asking himself, successful according to whom? His parents? Society? The influencers on social media? Or perhaps himself? This insidious thought consumed him. And from that moment on, the old path seemed tainted. Ever since he could remember, someone had been telling him what to do and what not to do. You must study hard and get good grades. Then get a good and stable job, so you can earn more and more money. After that, buy a big house and retire early so that you can finally enjoy life. No one had ever asked him, "Do you feel any sense of gratification doing this?" They only asked, "What do you want to become?" As if your job defined you, period. As a result, people found themselves climbing greasy poles, only to realize too late that they were climbing the wrong ones. This is why so many people are successful according to society's definition yet remain empty inside. It is not possible to achieve success and satisfaction if the two concepts are not intertwined. Our hero finally came to the horrifying realization that he did not need another promotion, he needed another direction. It was discovered. One evening, after a particularly grueling day at the office, he took out a piece of paper and began writing. What are my talents? What are my interests? What problems do I enjoy solving? What activities make me lose track of time? Initially, he found it hard to come up with concrete answers, as if years of routine had dulled his sense of self. However, then, it all came rushing back. When he was 12, he used to draw compulsively. Not because he was particularly talented at it, nor did he do it to gain recognition. He drew because he simply could not help himself. He would spend hours engrossed in the process, paying little attention to the present. It was only when his parents reminded him that he would miss dinner if he kept drawing that he returned to reality. He enjoyed the process much more than the outcome. He remembered how he used to feel when he was drawing, his mind vacant of everything else. It was the ultimate flow state when no distractions could penetrate his consciousness. The authors call it by many names, but that feeling of emptiness while being intensely focused on the task at hand is what ultimately led him to discover his Ikigai. It is a common characteristic among people who find themselves in flow that it somehow points them to what they want to do for the rest of their lives. According to the article, those who experience this mental state tend to do activities that challenge them just enough while being within their skill sphere. It might not be easy, but it certainly is meaningful. Perhaps his Ikigai was always within his reach. Perhaps it was never hidden, it was merely forgotten. He thought the reason he failed to find his passion was because of fear. He was wrong. It was comfort. Comfort makes you believe that everything is fine when it is not. Comfort makes you stay in a certain place when you should strive to be better. It persuades you to avoid embarrassment, failure, and disappointment, but in doing so, it makes you numb to joy, fulfillment, and satisfaction. Comfort rarely makes you lose your life in one fell swoop, it does it insidiously, day by day. That is why, for far too long, he remained exactly where he was meant to be. The Japanese understand that growth should not be an intermittent event, punctuating otherwise wasted years. They value growth enough to pursue it relentlessly, even when it means working until their last day on Earth. These people realize that although your body might retire, your spirit should never. While it is true that your salary and profession will eventually come to an end, your purpose should sustain you throughout your life, no matter what it entails. The next morning, he did something he thought was small enough to make a difference. Instead of waking up at 7, he woke up at 6. He did not turn on his phone, he did not check any messages. He sat and listened to the quiet of the morning, which, at first, felt uncomfortable. His mind immediately searched for distractions, and his hand almost instinctively went to his phone. However, he quickly realized that he was not addicted to the notifications. The problem was not the silence. The problem was his thoughts. So instead of fleeing from the emptiness within, he embraced it, allowing the stillness to consume him. 5 minutes became 10, then 20, then an hour. The authors have already discussed how distractions prevent us from reaching a meaningful flow state and how paying full attention to one meaningful activity can allow us to achieve our purpose. According to them, reducing distractions and protecting those meaningful tasks that demand undivided attention can help. You might even find value in protecting your time not spent multitasking. He was not looking to change who he was but to instead change the environment within himself. After all, he was his worst critic and his most vicious opponent. For years, he had disciplined himself relentlessly, trying to change his morning rituals and develop habits that would allow him to grow as a person. It did not work for long. Why? Because discipline without purpose is only effective in the short term. It is like forcing yourself to work out. It may be useful when you begin, but eventually, the discomfort outweighs the endorphins, and you quit. Purpose transforms discipline into something sustainable. Think about it. When was the last time you forced yourself to do something unpleasant? Now, think about your children, or maybe a demanding spouse, or a competitive colleague. What motivating words did they use to get you through the rough patch? Discipline without purpose is a curse. It is the reason why so many of us give up when the road gets tough. People who possess purpose do not experience a reduction in hardship, but they do gain strength in numbers. The struggle is still there, but it is tolerable enough that you can endure it. You can think about an Olympic athlete who trains tirelessly in pursuit of victory. It is not the promise of glory that keeps them going, it is the knowledge of the process itself and the sheer love for the sport. The same can be said for a mother who puts her child to bed every night. Even the most disciplined among us cannot do what they do without the promise of an underlying, deeply seated purpose. One afternoon, his grandfather told him something interesting after watching him waste a considerable amount of time planning his future. You are trying to see the mountain, but you should be focusing on taking the next step. This message resonated with him because the anxiety he felt was due to his belief that his entire future would change if he did something different. He realized that peace was not something that came in the future, it was something that manifested itself in the present. He stopped worrying about his future self and started focusing on becoming better each day. Instead of thinking about how his life would change if he changed his profession, he thought about what meaningful thing he could do today. He read 10 extra pages of a book, went for a walk, called his mother, or spent an hour learning a new skill. Small things like these became the foundation of his identity, and he realized that he did not need to be a different person tomorrow, he only needed to be better today. Many people believe that they would like to do something meaningful once they feel inspired. The Japanese way negates that belief, for it is the doing that inspires you, not the other way around. Waiting for permission to change your life is one of the costliest mistakes you will ever make. The reason is simple: confidence is not something that makes you courageous, it is the other way around. You were not born confident, you earned it by doing the difficult things you were afraid to do. The book talks about this exact notion, saying that our emotions can be manipulated by the actions we take. If you do not believe in yourself, you will never reach your goals, but if you take action despite your fears, those fears lose their power over you. It is these seemingly insignificant things that eventually become the stuff of legends. As a result, one day turned into a week, then a month, then a year. He was smiling again, not because life had become exceptionally easy, but because he was enjoying the ride. One evening, his grandfather asked him one final question that completely dismantled any meaning he thought he had previously grasped. He asked, "If someone took away your wealth, status, and power, who would you be?" The room suddenly grew uncomfortable because, at some point, we have all known the answer, but we do not want to admit it. The truth is, none of us are particularly happy with who we are because we do not want to be who we are. There is no point, however, in running away from yourself. In fact, in the final chapter, you will learn about one particular lesson that has helped many people realize that life is not about longevity but feeling alive. Who are you? When everything you used to be is gone. Not your title. Not your money. Not your likes. Not your trophies. Just you. This question had tormented him for days because, for the first time, he realized that he had built an identity, not a life, and that there is a difference. One can be stolen from you overnight, the other is something you discover. A few months later, he set off for Japan, on a trip that he hoped would lead to answers. He found himself in Okinawa, surrounded by rice fields, not skyscrapers, by bicycles, not luxury sports cars, and by smiling faces, not rushing feet. Not that he found no secrets in Okinawa, but the wrong ones. He was looking for a special food or a unique herb, but what he discovered were common people who had decided to lead uncommon lives. He saw a woman in her 90s tending her flowers, a man who could have been 110 years old teaching young people traditional arts, and others who shared their tea and laughter, as if their lives had never depended on it. Everyone had chosen to be who they were, not who the world wanted them to be. That was their secret to living. They had turned their lives into an extension of their being and, in doing so, had managed to discover their true joy. The book mentions that many long-living Okinawans remain physically active well into their golden years, and instead of disconnecting from the world when they retire, they find ways to contribute to it. On his last night in Okinawa, he asked an elderly fisherman, "What made you happy?" He paused, perhaps searching the horizon, and said, "I never sought to live a perfect life. I sought to live a meaningful one." He realized that for most of his life, he had mistaken convenience for happiness. He was always waiting for the next promotion, weight loss, or relationship to bring him joy, which then led him away from another opportunity, another challenge, another purpose. It always started with the word if I get this job, if I buy this house, if I lose this weight, and so on. The elders in Okinawa had simply understood that joy is not a condition of life but its ornament. They saw that being happy and having a purpose were not the same, while he only realized it now. That's what life was all about, not the destination but the day-to-day interactions, the simple acts of kindness and service, the walks in the morning sun, the hard work, the laughter, the shared meals, and the conversations that made a difference, the things that gave life its meaning and its joy. These were the opportunities that people of Okinawa used to lead extraordinary lives. While you wait. Now he stood before the same city, the same apartment, and the same job, but it all felt familiar yet strangely new. It was not that purpose always required you to move, but rather that it changed the ways in which you had been seeing things. He did not start pursuing happiness but protecting his mornings, creating instead of consuming, exercising not because he hated his body but because he loved it, and calling people more often and listening more carefully. That is when he started working not to move up the career ladder but to make a difference. He started resting when he needed and not when he was supposed to, and, most importantly, he saw that life was not an opportunity to make mistakes but a series of moments when you could become extraordinary. What had changed was not the life around him but the perception of it, as he stopped waking up wishing he were someone else and started waking up for himself. It was ironic that he was making so many small changes to become a better version of himself, but that was the role of purpose in your life. You could not climb Mount Everest the day you set camp at the base of the peak. That was the message behind the book, really, that purpose was not a matter of big events but rather a set of little choices that added up to making a difference. The authors mention that you should dedicate yourself to purposeful acts that make you focus, pay attention to what is right, challenge you instead of avoiding challenges, improve existing habits, and so on. You are much more likely to become extraordinary if you commit yourself to improving your daily life rather than waiting for it to improve you. Imagine you are 85 years old, sitting on a porch watching the sunset. What will make you smile is not how many emails you sent or how many promotions you received, but rather the people you loved, the adventures you took, the moments you watched the sunrise, the conversations you shared, the ones where your soul sang, "This is it." So who will you tell that story to? To a distracted friend who has forgotten how to listen, or perhaps to yourself, as you realize that you have lived a full life. It was not an easy path, not because he wanted it to be, but because it always is. But it was extraordinary nonetheless, and that was the point. The world does not reward those who stumble into success, only those who wake up, repeatedly, and choose to find it. It is ironic that most people ask the question, how do I find my purpose? When it does not hide, waiting for you to discover it. It shows itself in the choices you make to live an extraordinary life. Ikigai is not a mountain that you climb, but rather, hundreds of opportunities to become extraordinary in small ways, so that the big ways take care of themselves. That is why most people miss out on it. They are looking for fireworks while life's joy often comes in the form of the morning sun, ready to brighten your day if you open your eyes to it. So next time your alarm goes off, don't ask yourself, what am I supposed to do today? Ask, what kind of person am I becoming today? Because one day you will realize that you have become someone who lives an extraordinary life, just like those residents of Okinawa, not because you have discovered some magical elixir, but rather because you have decided that each day can be an opportunity to become better than you were. Remember this, your purpose is not waiting for you at the end of the road, it is waiting for you at the end of each meaningful step. Take it, then, and the next, for the life you have been searching for is right around the corner, inside you, waiting for you to take it. Before you close this tab, let me ask you one more question. If discovering your purpose gives you a reason to wake up, what is the one thing that silently steals that purpose, without you even realizing it? The answer to that question has baffled neuroscientists, tricked psychologists, and is costing you thousands of dollars at this exact moment. We are going to discuss all of that in the next video, so make sure you hit the subscribe button below.